Congratulations for always.
We live? Hello.
1 sec on YouTube. It's being weird. What the heck? Give me a sec. YouTube's being stupid. Public. Okay, you're public now.
Hello. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Yeah, we're live. Wonderful. Jordan Sheridan. I'll wait for a couple more people to trickle in here on this breaking news day. Status Coup. Obviously, tough day for women in America. Please press that like button. Share this live stream. I'm going to wait for some more folks to trickle in so we could get started. Obviously, you have the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which was expected, but obviously a whole different thing now that it has passed. Please smash the like button, even if you're feeling gloomy. Share this live stream with as many people as you can. Post on social media that we're live. We're sending out a text message too. A lot to discuss, and there are protests happening right now at the Supreme Court. There will be protests in New York City, where we will be. We will be live a little bit later in New York City from protests. Tina Desiree Berg, who is a journalist, independent journalist who hosts with me once a week. She has gone to protest in Los Angeles. John Farina, who's an independent videographer, he was down at the Supreme Court, so we'll be using footage from him. So we'll have it tackled from New York City, LA, Washington, D.C., all over. So obviously we want to cover this as much as possible. Protests, where are protests, Jordan? There's a protest in New York City, Washington Square Park, I believe at 6:30. And then, Colin, what was the other one? Washington Square Park in New York City was at 6:30, and 8 o'clock was
Union Square.
Okay. Washington Square Park, which has the infamous arches, and Union Square Park at 8 o'clock if you're living in New York City. So smash the like button, share this live stream. Let's start just with kind of the ramifications of this. I'm going to go to CNN first. The reporter that reported that the Supreme Court had overturned Roe v. Wade, and then we'll hear from Jeffrey Toobin, who, when he's not masturbating during work meetings, offers some decent legal analysis. Let's go to the CNN reporter first.
And Jim, the court issuing that landmark ruling that this nation has been bracing for, and the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, that they have eliminated the constitutional right to an abortion. And at first glance, this opinion is very similar to that draft opinion that we saw leaked just about a month and a half ago at the beginning of May. So what we're seeing at first glance here is that this is a 5-4 decision. This is an opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, joined with those other conservatives, Justice Thomas, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh. The Chief Justice John Roberts not joining in the opinion, but joining in the judgment, meaning that he agrees that the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban should be upheld, but not agreeing with this sweeping proclamation that Roe v. Wade is overturned. We are looking into this opinion, but this will have immediate effects here. By all estimates, about half of the states are expected to eliminate the right to abortion. We've got about a half dozen states that have so-called trigger laws that their abortion bans will go into effect either immediately or within the next 30 days or the next few months. And then we have about a dozen states with so-called zombie laws. Those were actually abortion laws that were on the books before Roe v. Wade in 1973 that will then go back into effect. On the flip side, there are about 16 states in Washington, D.C.
Reports are that abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood clinics, have already stopped providing services today. Colin, let's show the Washington Post map so people could see, kind of the different states and what each state has in terms of trigger laws and things like that. It's towards the top of the. There you go. So the map, if we could show the map. Yeah. Full screen it and zoom in. So Texas, which was ground zero for a lot of this, has a 6-week ban that is already in effect and a full trigger ban that will take effect 30 days after Roe is overturned. So in 30 days, it'll be completely overturned. Louisiana, trigger ban that takes effect immediately, no waiting period. So abortion is now illegal in Louisiana. Mississippi has a trigger ban that will take effect within days. State's attorney general must first certify the court's decision. Oklahoma has a full ban already in effect. State also has a trigger ban. Arkansas, trigger ban that will take effect after the state's attorney general certifies the court's decision, which pretty sure they'll be doing today. Tennessee, trigger ban that will take effect 30 days after Roe is overturned. Kentucky, a trigger ban that takes effect immediately. No waiting period or certification is required. Missouri has a trigger ban that will take effect within days. The state's attorney general must first certify the court's decision. South Dakota, trigger ban that will take effect immediately. No waiting period or certification. North Dakota, trigger ban that will take effect within 30 days after the state's legislative council approves. State attorney general. Wyoming, trigger ban that will take effect in 30 days. Utah, trigger ban that will take effect within days, and Idaho, trigger ban that will take effect 30 days. And these kind of yellow ones, Alabama has a full abortion ban from 2019 that is likely to be enforced, and a pre-Roe ban that could be brought back. Georgia has a 6-week ban from 2019 that is pending in the courts and would likely take effect. South Carolina has a 6-week ban blocked by the courts that is likely to be enforced. West Virginia has a pre-Roe abortion ban that could be brought back, and a constitutional amendment specifying that West Virginians do not have the right to abortion. Ohio has a 6-week ban blocked by the courts that is likely to be enforced. Indiana has a Republican governor who has expressed interest in convening a special session to pass a new anti-abortion law. Iowa has a 6-week ban from 2018 that was ruled unconstitutional but could be brought back. Not in this map, former vice president, who the resistance liberals have started to love again, Mike Pence, he celebrated this ruling, now calling for a complete ban on abortion, not for it to be left up to the states, for a complete ban, which, make no mistake, is where the pro-life movement will go next. They're not going to stop at having it, available in certain states. Let's play Jeffrey Toobin, CNN legal analyst, on the ramifications of this.
Psychologists have a term called flashbulb memory, which is you remember where you are when something happened. The big deal, 9/11, Kennedy assassination. Today is the moment, right now, when we are going to learn the fate of constitutional abortion rights in America. In 1973, the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade and said the right to a woman's right to choose abortion was up to her until the moment of viability on the part of the fetus. They reaffirmed that many times, including in 1992 in a case that year. And now the Dobbs case involving a statute out of Mississippi is a case about whether abortion rights will continue under the United States Constitution. This is a especially bizarre scenario in Supreme Court history because a draft opinion of in this case was leaked about 6 weeks ago, where Roe v. Wade was overturned. And what we're going to find out momentarily is whether that
All
draft
right, so
opinion
that's the wrong. Yeah, that's the wrong one. That was before it was ruled. We'll try to get him because he actually made a good point. Kind of impromptu, but I'm going to bring in Lewis, who's a freelance journalist who's been doing great work for us. You're down in Texas where the 6-week ban had been put in, and you were just at the Capitol. I wanted to have you on. And to be clear to the audience, I'm aware we're both men. I wanted to have Tina on, but she's down in Los Angeles, covering protests in LA. So we'll have to do for now. Clearly, Lewis or I cannot discuss from an emotional standpoint what this means. It doesn't directly affect us, but we will talk about the politics, and we will be covering protests later. And obviously, the first and mostly people we will be interviewing are women in these New York City, DC, LA, and Lewis is covering stuff down there. Lewis, the trigger element of this, can you kind of explain what that means? I just kind of went through the map, and in Texas specifically, where it was kind of ground zero for this.
For sure. So you briefly went over it, but yeah, here in Texas, the trigger law will go into effect 30 days from now. There doesn't need to be any new approvals or anything like that. So 30 days from today, abortion will be illegal in the state of Texas with the exception of the mother's life, and that is it. So that means here, if in a case of rape or incest, it is still entirely illegal, which to a lot of folks here rightfully is pretty insane. It's not something that you'd think in 2022 we would be moving towards. This morning, Governor Abbott tweeted about it, saying that this was a big step forward. In general, people here are definitely shocked to hear it. Colin also put that map up earlier. I want to talk about that a little bit because a kind of a counter that a lot of conservatives that I talk with say, like, oh, well, you know, you're only making it illegal in Texas, right? Like that people can go other places to go get the abortion. First off, that would be great if, you know, everyone had unlimited amounts of money and can travel all over the place. A lot of folks who are in a position where they need an abortion might be in a position financially where they don't have the means to even pay for it if it's in their own state or get access to you know, low cost or other options. So they're not able to travel, you know, anyway to be able to go do this. But when you look at that map, there's 13 states, as you mentioned, that all have trigger laws. If you're in Austin right here, you know, the closest other states would be to our east. So heading towards Louisiana or Arkansas, a lot of those places, you'll note if you looked at that map, also have trigger laws in effect. So the closest place that you would be able to go if you're living in Austin, and this drive gets even further if you're in Houston or in further east parts of the states, is to drive all the way to New Mexico. And even then, who knows where the closest clinic is. So from Austin, just to give you some perspective, I mean, that's like a 9-hour drive at least to get there. So that's definitely not a real argument to it. Is, oh, you know, sure, they're only getting rid of it in Texas, right? It's just it's a state law. We're passing it back to the states. I mean, sure, right, but a lot of these folks are not going to be able to afford to travel to these places not only once, but here in Texas, I mean, you're not even going to be able to get an appointment to like get a pre-check. I would imagine, I don't know personally, but I would imagine getting an abortion requires more than one appointment. So this is not one trip to New Mexico or wherever. This is multiple trips with multiple 8, 10, 12-hour drives to make this happen. It's definitely going to be affecting people here tremendously. Yeah.
And by the way, there's already kind of murmurs and chatter that Texas might try to make it illegal for you to leave Texas to get an abortion, which is also insane. We should also mention, I'm going to get into this in a bit, at least Clarence Thomas doesn't want to stop here. In his concurrent opinion, he said that we need to use the whatever make-believe precedent or make-believe logic. Here we go. Clarence Thomas writes in a concurring opinion that the Supreme Court should reconsider Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Obergefell. The ruling that now protects contraception, same-sex relationships, and same-sex marriage. At least in Alito and Kavanaugh, in their majority opinions, Alito had the majority. Kavanaugh had a concurring in support of that majority, they claim this line of thinking is only in regards to abortion. But then again, Alito lied during his confirmation hearing. Kavanaugh
A lot
lied
of
during
them lied during their confirmation hearings. Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
They all lied.
I saw a quote this morning from what's it, the most recent, or not the most recent, the last one Trump appointed. I'm blanking. Amy Coney Barrett. Sorry.
Right.
Amy Coney Barrett during her hearing said it'd be, I'm paraphrasing, but it'd be unconscionable to think that anyone would go and overturn case law that's been there for this long and is that settled in the American politics. And that's, I mean, clearly going against exactly what she said during her hearing.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. However much you want to share, but
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So before I get to the marriage equality one, I mean, first, still sticking on abortion, one of those cases that is mentioned there is actually making it more difficult to get contraceptives.
Hey,
so
do me a favor, move back a little because your forehead's cut off a little.
Sorry.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. So one of those other cases there, not a Burgefell, but one of the other two, actually would make it, if they were to overturn it, would make it more difficult for women to get contraceptives. So if you're actually trying to prevent abortions from happening in the first place, you would think that you would want to make it easier for folks to get contraceptives, not more difficult. To me, that seems like it's going to put more women in a position where they're going to need to go get an abortion rather than prevent it in the first place by making contraceptives more openly available. The logic seems a little twisted to me on that one, but I
should also add, this opens up. This is complete open season on not just contraception, in vitro fertilization, which is obviously, I'm not going to explain it as a man, but is a process for couples that have trouble conceiving, naturally. They might go after that as well. So it's not just straight up birth control.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then moving from there on to so Burgefell is a case that back in, I'm blanking on the year, I want to say around 2015, made same-sex marriage legal. And this morning, actually, Colin had sent over the tweet in a text that referred to Justice Thomas mentioning that. And that would make same-sex marriage go back to the states. And now every single state, there's a lot of southern states where same-sex marriage, believe it or not, is still illegal. I myself am gay. I texted that to my partner this morning, and I was like, this is already bad news for women, and like this is let's focus on that today because that is the forefront of what's happening, and folks need to do something about it. But it's scary to think that these things are coming next in the United States of America in 2022. That now all of a sudden, same-sex marriage is going to be up for debate again. Right. It's insane.
And folks, remember, smash the like button. I know people aren't in a great mood, but the more people that press like, it kind of jigs up YouTube's algorithm to share this more. I wanted to also point out, not that either of us are legal scholars, but I'm a pretty good bullshit scholar. The gun ruling yesterday was the complete opposite framework, that the states basically cannot regulate or are very restricted on regulating anything having to do with the Second Amendment. They obviously basically made New York's concealed carry law null and void. I don't need to get into that. Some people think that was a good thing. I do not. It's going to put more guns on the street. It's going to make it easier for anybody to walk onto a subway, train, bus in New York City. That's not a good thing. But their ruling basically said that this cannot be left up. The states cannot have the power to limit the constitutional rights of the Second Amendment. Here, they're saying, let's bring it to the states, basically under the guise of abortion's not in the Constitution, even though it was protected by Roe v. Wade in the 1970s. So it just seems like it's selective enforcement of the Constitution by this court.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and we'll see where things go from here. I mean, I know we're expecting, I actually, after the Roe v. Wade decision, I'm not sure how many more decisions they released today, but there are going to be a couple more cases being released. I know one of them was significant on climate change. I don't know all the details there. But we'll definitely see where they begin to take this, and what happens from there. I mean, realistically, though, I mean, this is now the reality of the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, no one's getting appointed anytime soon at this point. So the only real action that I think folks need to be starting to take is talking to their legislatures, and more than that, I mean, really pressuring. We need to see more pressure from Biden. If he actually cares about some of these issues, he needs to be using the bully pulpit to his absolute extreme, pressuring the hell out of Manchin and Sinema and other folks who don't want to talk about getting rid of the filibuster. But in a lot of these issues, that is the only way that any of these issues get solved here. There is no other way. Asking for donations we're going to solve all these problems in November is not going to happen. If Biden cares about protecting a woman's right to choose, he's going to be making those phone calls. It's going to be a real test to see what he does now. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And lastly, before I let you go, in Texas specifically, when we kind of talk about, I hate to be crass, but when we kind of talk about like back alley abortions, and, Texas is one of the places that this is going to happen, because Texas, I mean, has a lot of poor women, poor Black and brown women, high areas of Hispanic, Hispanic population. Obviously, a lot of those communities are, more religious and might be more pro-life, but there's a lot of women who are frankly poor that cannot drive the 10, 12 hours that you just described, and are possibly going to have unsafe procedures.
No, absolutely. And again, like to get back to my point from before, I mean, a lot of them might not even have they might not have a car even. Like, there's no easy way to get from here to New Mexico or wherever otherwise, I mean, without spending a fortune to do it. So yeah, I think you're right. Unfortunately, we are going to start to see more and more women put in extremely dangerous situations with limited resources to be able to deal with them at this point. We'll see what starts to happen. I'll be curious to see, there are protests scheduled here in Austin starting at 5 p.m. today at Republic Square. So if anyone's in Austin, that is a place where lots of folks are going to be gathering at 5 p.m. Central Time. That is also where there's a U.S. federal courthouse. And then around 6, it's going to turn into a march that will be ending right here. You can see the Texas State Capitol building right behind me. And we'll see what happens from there. Just to, I've spoken with a few folks briefly on my way in while I was getting set up here. People are pissed off. We'll see what happens of this. I mean, not a lot of folks are out yet. A lot of folks are at work, but I'm sure at 5, there's going to be a ton of folks out at Republic Square. I'll be sure to be there to be covering it, and I'm sure we'll have some videos to be posting to keep you all posted on what's going on here in Texas.
Yeah, and I'll be out for a couple days next week, so Lewis will go live and give him a look. He's a good young lad. He's been covering a lot of good stuff down there. He was down there after the horrible massacre in Uvalde, and he's been covering other things. So thanks, Ben. Take care. So I want to, by the way, I'm going to go through why you should take the fundraising emails that the Democratic Party sends you today and tell them to shove it up their ass. So we're going to get to that, because the Democratic Party, let's be clear, there was many things that the Democratic Party could have done to stop what just happened today, and we're going to go through them. Smash the like button, share this live stream, keep those super chats coming. I will read them towards the end. Like I said, we're going to be live in New York City from protests later today. I don't know exactly what time. There's some scheduled for 6:30 Eastern time, but there might be some that pop up earlier. So make sure you're on our text message list, so you'll get a text message when we're live. That's statuscoup.com/text. Does not cost you anything. And if it looks like it's a brand new number coming to you, it's not spam. We switched our number for technical reasons. So statuscoup.com/text does not cost you anything to sign up. And you'll get a text message when we're live later from New York City. And like I said, we'll also have footage from DC, where video journalist John Farina was there as the decision was read. He has footage of pro-lifers celebrating and pro-choice folks obviously upset. And we'll also probably have footage from Tina, who's out in LA covering protests. So I want to show this clip from Jeffrey Toobin. When he's not masturbating during work meetings, he actually has some decent legal analysis. Let's take a look.
As the Justice Alito's opinion says, the Constitution doesn't mention abortion, so there's no right to abortion. That's the end of the story to him. Other justices feel that the Constitution has to be interpreted in light of how the society has changed, and they're sometimes described as a living Constitution. And abortion rights was certainly, Roe v. Wade and the decisions ratifying it certainly was a decision that was based on a living conception of the Constitution. The originalists are winning, and they won yesterday.
Free Tubman, to you. Let's talk about the impact state to state. Trigger laws already in states now that will immediately take effect.
Will immediately take effect. And, you know, if you think that this is going to lead to some sort of neat solution where, well, in one set of states it's legal, in another set of states abortion is illegal, that's not how it's going to work. This is going to be a legal civil war between the states, because you are going to have situations in many states where it is illegal to help people get abortions. And so people from other states are going to give money. They're going to travel to those states. They are going to participate in trying to help these women get abortions. If you travel from New York to Oklahoma to help a woman get an abortion, are you going to be prosecuted? If you send money, are you going to be prosecuted?
Companies that have been funding people.
And there's also the issue of the commercial impact of this, boycotts. Yeah. What if a company says they are going to pay for travel for abortion out of another state? Anti-abortion people may want to boycott that company. Yeah. What if they say they're not going to pay for abortion? Pro-abortion rights people will say they were going to boycott that company. I mean, this is going to have enormous ramifications, but they all start with the effect on women who will lose a right that they have had for 50 years. In this.
So I think he makes a good point, because essentially this is just going to be lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. From pro-life states that say, hey, all we're doing is moving this to the state level, but they're going to do everything they can to try and make it really, really impossible for women in their states where it's illegal to get an abortion to be aided for travel or whatever else to get an abortion elsewhere. This is just going to be endless lawsuits that, honestly, a lot of them might be favorable to women who want to get an abortion, and then on appeal overturned. And who knows, a lot of these lawsuits might make its way up to the same-sex extreme judge. So it's not going to just basically be, hey, find a way to get to a state that makes it legal. There's going to be a lot of obstacles for women, particularly poor women, because we know wealthy women or fairly well-to-do women are going to be able to get an abortion if they want one. I also I mentioned it to Lewis, but let's show the tweet. Clarence Thomas writes in a concurring opinion that the Supreme Court should reconsider Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, the rulings that now protect contraception, same-sex relationships, and same-sex marriage. It was only Clarence Thomas that said that, but let's be clear. Samuel Alito, when he was in his Supreme Court confirmation in the 90s, he perjured himself and said Roe v. Wade was settled law. Brett Kavanaugh recently, in addition to the sexual assault allegations, which if you look at them, were very credible, he led senators to believe that he considered Roe v. Wade settled law. Same thing with Neil Gorsuch. Same thing with Amy Coney Barrett. She actually said, I'm paraphrasing, but it would be somewhat crazy to not consider this settled law. They also mentioned, legal precedent. So all of these Supreme Court justices, obviously Clarence Thomas, who, if we had a Democratic Party with a spine, would have been trying for impeachment hearings of Clarence Thomas, since, as I'm going to discuss in a little bit, his wife was clearly leaking information to his wife, Ginny Thomas, who there are text messages between Ginny Thomas, Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, Ginny Thomas, other Trump operatives, showing that she was working with the Trump campaign to try and overturned the results of the election. And she also said, I've been talking about this with my best friend. Well, other reports indicate that her and Clarence Thomas refer to each other as best friends. Can you imagine for a second? If Justice Sotomayor's husband or Justice Kagan's spouse, if anything came out where their spouses were texting, I don't know, Biden's chief of staff on anything, let's just throw out, I don't know, something about LGBTQ rights, something about unions, something about abortion, or, Roe v. Wade. The Republicans all over this country would be fighting tooth and nail immediately to impeach those Supreme Court justices. Immediately. The Democrats, let's send you some fundraising emails. Hey, the only way we can fix this is, we got to codify Roe v. Wade, vote for more Democrats. Which brings me to President Biden. He spoke. I'm not showing you the whole speech, but I wanted to show you the parts that I thought were relevant, which included vote for more Democrats.
The realization of an extreme ideology and a tragic error by the Supreme Court, in my view. The court has done what it has never done before, expressly take away a constitutional right that is so fundamental to so many Americans that had already been recognized. The court's decision to do so will have real and immediate consequences. State laws banning abortion are automatically taking effect today, jeopardizing the health of millions of women, some without exceptions. So extreme that women could be punished for protecting their health. So extreme that women and girls who are forced to bear their rapist's child. With the child, a consequence. It just stuns me. So extreme that doctors will be criminalized for fulfilling their duty to care. Imagine having a young woman have to carry the child of incest as a consequence of incest. No option. Too often the case. The poor women are going to be hit the hardest. It's cruel. In fact, the court laid out state laws criminalizing abortion that go back to the 1800s as rationale. The court literally taking America back 150 years. This is a sad day for the country, in my view. But it doesn't mean the fight's over. Let me be very clear and unambiguous. The only way we can secure a woman's right to choose, and the balance that existed, is for Congress to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade as federal law. No executive action from the president can do that. And if Congress, as it appears, lacks the votes to do that now, voters need to make their voices heard. This fall, we must elect more senators and representatives who will codify women's right to choose into federal law once again. Elect more state leaders to protect this right at the local level. We need to restore the protections of Roe as law of the land. We need to elect officials who will do that. This fall, Roe is on the ballot. Personal freedoms are on the ballot. The right to privacy, liberty, equality, they're all on the ballot. Until then, I will do all of my power to protect a woman's right in states where they will face the consequences of today's decision. While the court's decision cast a dark shadow over a large swath of the land, many states in this country still recognize a woman's right to choose. So, if a woman lives in a state that restricts abortion, the Supreme Court's decision does not prevent her from traveling from her home state to the state that allows it. It does not prevent a doctor in that state from treating her. As the Attorney General has made clear, women must remain free to travel safely to another state to
All right.
seek care they need.
You get the point. So there's so many things. And you know what? There's a lot of people watching. I'm probably going to piss off some people with the things I'm going to say. First of all, Biden, right? When 19 kids were just killed in Uvalde, 2 teachers too. Biden held a speech with candles behind him, right? Attacked Republicans. Well, that's easy. We should attack Republicans. They take blood money. They don't care how many people died, children. Hey, even if their children died from gun violence, they probably wouldn't do anything. But what he didn't say in that speech is we actually can vote to remove the filibuster to pass gun control. What he didn't say in the speech today is right now we have 48 Democrats who are ready to vote to end the filibuster to codify Roe v. Wade. And there are 2 Democrats, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who, by the way, aren't absolutists on the filibuster. Colin, I just sent it to you. They approved waiving the filibuster for the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling, which is essentially just paying our obligations. No, not that one, the Washington Post article. They approved waiving the filibuster to vote for the debt ceiling. The president could make the case, I don't know. Yes, we do think it's very important to pay our debts, which, by the way, is bullshit if you believe in modern monetary theory. But putting that aside, but Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin need to explain to the women of this country, women who are Democrats and women who are Republicans. Republican women in polling, many of them support a women's right to choose. They need to explain why they are okay waiving the filibuster to get our financial house in order, keep our financial house in order, but are not okay with waiving the filibuster for women's reproductive health. He could even say, I'm not calling for them to waive the filibuster for all things, which is what he should do. It's not in the Constitution. His predecessor, Obama, says it's the last relic of Jim Crow, even though Obama didn't lift a finger to get rid of the filibuster. But instead of sending fundraising emails right now, he could put an unprecedented pressure campaign on 2 senators who right now stand in the way of removing or of codifying Roe v. Wade. Well, devil's advocate, you could say, well, Jordan, if he did that, fine, but Republicans are going to take back the House in November. Republicans will probably possibly take back the Senate, and they'll just use the filibuster, waiving the filibuster to reverse it. Well, then we fight it then. Then you fight it, you live to fight another day then. But you don't say, well, we're not going to try because Republicans will just use it to overturn it. Let the Republican Party try to overturn codifying Roe v. Wade if they have the House and the Senate, which, by the way, they would need enough votes to override a veto from Biden. So let's not pretend, as Biden is sending out right now, and Pelosi, who already sent the fundraising email. Colin, do we have that image? Pelosi already has sent out a fundraising email. Could you zoom in so we could read it? You can full screen. I need your immediate attention, Pelosi says. Trump's Supreme Court just ruled to rip reproductive rights away from every single woman in this country. I don't say this lightly. How we act today will decide the future of reproductive rights. We could either sit back and admit defeat to these far-right extremists, or we could rise up, meet this once-in-a-generation moment, and marshal a response so historic that we make every last anti-choice Republican regret what they've done. Please, I've never needed your support more than today. Can you chip in $15? Hey, she sure knows how to rise up against those awful anti-choice Republicans. She also knows how to rise up and help reelect the only anti-choice Democrat, Henry Cuellar, in Texas. Remember that? Jessica Cisneros, by the way, who was on the verge of winning down in South Texas before Nancy Pelosi, the Death Star, James Clyburn, and all the super PACs, crypto billionaires, mainstream Democrat PAC, a couple other super PACs, flooded South Texas, Pelosi went down there, Clyburn went down there to support an anti-choice, pro-NRA, corrupt, under FBI investigation Democrat. So don't listen to Nancy Pelosi when she tells you how important a woman's right to choose is. She doesn't give a flying fuck about a woman's right to choose. She cares about power. That's why she supported an anti-choice Democrat after this decision had leaked against a progressive woman of color, Jessica Cisneros. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Biden could be doing that. Biden can be doing that. I see people on Twitter say, you don't understand politics. Explain to me how I'm wrong. The filibuster, right? 48 Democrats are on the record saying they would vote to end the filibuster. Now, maybe some of them are full of shit, but as of now, they're on the record. I believe, based on what I've seen, Kyrsten Sinema can be pressured. I believe that Joe Manchin has an incredibly thin skin and has not, the Democratic Party, including Bernie Sanders and the squad, who we should call out too, they haven't laid a glove on Kyrsten Sinema or Joe Manchin. Not one rally in West Virginia or Arizona. By the way, West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country. How are women who need an abortion in West Virginia going to afford to drive hours and hours and hours to get an abortion in the nearest legal state? Okay? Joe Manchin has not been pressured, contrary to what people believe. We've had activists, row in their paddles towards his yacht. Yes, he has a yacht. We've had activists nearly jump on his Lamborghini. Yes, he has a Lamborghini. We have not had the president of the United States use the bully pulpit against him. We have not had Bernie, the squad, the elected progressives who said they were going to bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party. They haven't done a goddamn thing. The most Bernie did was write an op-ed in a newspaper in West Virginia, and that was to get Manchin to vote for Build Back Better. Make Joe Manchin, an old white man, explain why he was okay waiving the filibuster to approve the debt ceiling, but not for women's reproductive rights. How he explains to the women of West Virginia. He has grandkids. I don't know their sex. Assumption is maybe he has a female granddaughter. He said, Joe Manchin, by the way, says he's pro-life, but not enough to overturn Roe v. Wade. Make him explain why they will not vote to remove the filibuster. Unless this really, for the Democratic Party and Biden, is not about immediately codifying Roe v. Wade, unless it's about having what they consider the biggest political generational weapon to use to try and stave off the iceberg that is surely ahead. And make no mistake, emotions are raw right now. The Democratic Party is not going to, in my opinion, the Democratic Party is not going to stave off the right-wing bloodbath that's coming in November merely on running on we'll codify Roe v. Wade. It ain't going to happen because people also vote with their wallets. Inflation, unfortunately, is not going to be any better. It's not all Biden's fault, but there are things he could be doing on inflation, which we have covered here that he's not doing. You'll have a lot of women come out. You might even have some more suburban women who kind of go back and forth. Sometimes they vote for Democrats. Sometimes they vote for Republicans, were repelled by Donald Trump. So they came out for Democrats in 2018. Yeah, it might have some more of them come out for Democrats because they're repelled by this Supreme Court ruling. But what are you going to do about age 18 to 29? Right now, Biden's approval rating among the kiddos, 18 to 29, is, I believe, 20-something%. You think all of them are coming out just over Roe v. Wade? I'm sorry, they're not. What are you going to do about black voters who are the bedrock of the Democratic Party? Biden, the last poll I saw, was under 50% approval. Do you think all of them are coming out only on Roe v. Wade when all you did economically was give them a $1,400 check, some unemployment, and a nice kick in the ass? You did nothing on a minimum wage. You've done nothing on the continued police assassinations of unarmed black men. And please smash this like button. We got 600 people watching. We need more. You've done nothing on climate. And don't tell me, well, Jordan, he tried, but, Manchin and Sinema. Do you think, I'm not like a huge fan of Lyndon B. Johnson because of what he did with Vietnam. He did some other things that were good domestically. But do you think Lyndon B. Johnson would allow some coal baron like Joe Manchin? Do you think Lyndon B. Johnson would just sit there and let Joe Manchin completely block his whole presidency? No. You know what Lyndon B. Johnson would say? Hey, Joe Manchin, you own a coal company, so I don't think we could allow you to stay as chairman of the Senate Energy Committee, where you set policy for coal, natural gas, fracking, clean energy. You kind of have a conflict of interest. We're yanking you off of that chairmanship. And you know what? There's some weird things here. There's reports that, in your position, you helped rise electricity prices in West Virginia for your constituents, that you helped jack up electricity prices that would benefit your coal plant. We're going to have to look into that. Oh, your daughter was the CEO of a pharmaceutical company that price gouged EpiPens. We're going to have to look into that too, my Department of Justice. Kirsten Sinema. I mean, this is somebody who wears a pink wig half the time. I'm not trying to be derogatory, but do you think Lyndon B. Johnson would allow Kirsten Sinema to block his whole thing? At least he would try and fight these people. But the truth is, and look at the flag behind me, I've always said, folks, you could protest outside politicians' offices till you're blue in the face. You could protest outside corporations till you're blue in the face. And that's fine. We've covered plenty of them. The politicians are not typically making all the decisions. Biden basically is making most of the decisions when it comes to foreign policy, but the donors dictate things. It's not direct. There's not a conference call every morning between Biden and Jeff Bezos, the Walton family, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Ken Griffin, hedge fund managers. It's more baked into the structure of the corrupt United Corporations of America. There is a line that politicians are allowed to go to called bipartisan compromise, which typically means crumbs for you and me and cake for their donors. That's what the infrastructure deal was that passed, that the Democrats are making to be some historic thing, when in reality, the infrastructure deal that passed last year was a privatization scheme that's selling public wastewater, waterways, and infrastructure to private companies. And doesn't even really put a full dent in the full scope of our infrastructure problems in this country. So Biden can do something right now, and that's go on a goddamn political crusade to bend Manchin and Sinema. And you want to know something? I think even progressives who do not like Joe Biden, including me, would back him up on that, because at least it would show he's fighting. That doesn't mean he's not a warmonger. It doesn't mean he's not corrupt. But on this issue, I think people across the party, across the spectrum, would support him. I want to continue. Colin, do we have a clip from Pelosi? Do you have that clip?
Means to women is such an insult. It's a slap in the face to women about using their own judgment to make their own decisions about their reproductive freedom. Reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November. We cannot allow them to take charge so that they can institute their goal, which is to criminalize reproductive freedom.
So clearly, Nancy Pelosi has always cared predominantly about women's reproductive rights, so much so that she went in last minute to back up Henry Cuellar, an anti-choice Democrat. I mean, let's be clear. Supreme Court ultimately is responsible here. They're extremists, they're zealots, and they ruled to overturn Roe v. Wade, but you can't let the Democratic Party off the hook. We haven't even gotten into the fact that I know, she's the holy among the resistance, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired during President Obama's administration. She didn't retire because she wanted to be there when Hillary Clinton became the first female president. I'm not a woman. I'm not going to mansplain here. I get the thought. I get the instinct by RBG to want to be there for the history of Hillary Clinton being president and then retire. Well, that historic wish by RBG is partly why we have what we have now. which is a 6-3 Supreme Court, even though this ruling was 5-4. I mean, that's just the real talk of it. I know a lot of people, have RBG candles in their homes, and you can't criticize RBG, but that's the reality. She should have retired. So don't blame Susan Sarandon for that. Because all I do is see Susan Sarandon trending. So she's responsible, Susan Sarandon, for the climate inferno. She's responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade. She's responsible for it all, apparently. Not Hillary Clinton running a terrible campaign. Not RBG not retiring. Not Obama not fighting Mitch McConnell when McConnell blocked his Supreme Court justice. Not the Democratic Party. When there's evidence that Clarence Thomas has been leaking private confidential deliberations of the Supreme Court to his wife, who's a lunatic trying to overturn the election, they don't do a thing about that. And by the way, putting aside Pelosi's hypocrisy, this whole, you could vote for whoever you want. Contrary to what people say, I never tell you how to vote. You want to vote for Democrats, vote for them. You don't want to vote for Democrats, don't vote for them. Third party, vote for whoever you want. I could only tell you what I do. A lot of people, some people don't agree with what I personally do. I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. I voted for Biden in 2020. I've already outlined my reasons for both. But you do what you want to do. But I will be clear, what they're telling you to do, just give us money, vote. You're going to need, right now you got 50, right now you have 48 Democratic senators and 2 that are independent. So basically 50 senators. You're going to need 10 more Democrats to make 60. Okay? I don't even know if Democrats have 60 votes, which would be a filibuster-proof majority. I don't really know if you can actually believe them that they would codify Roe v. Wade. I don't know. I think even if you had a filibuster-proof majority, Manchin might say, well, I don't think we should do this without any Republican support. Sinema might say the same thing. Secondly, I mean, unless a miracle happens, there is no way Democrats are going to win plus 10, meaning they're going to defeat 10 Republican incumbents. With inflation as it is, with the base of the Democratic Party depressed, sure, this will lift it a little bit. But I'm telling you, looking at the polls, yes, they will get an increase and activate the base over Roe v. Wade, but it's not going to eliminate the economic issues. It doesn't eliminate when Biden and the Democrats had the opportunity. Biden could have said, yeah, the parliamentarian, that's not a binding thing. It's an unelected bureaucrat. We're going to pass a $15 minimum wage. That might have been something that saved them. But he didn't do it because he doesn't really believe in a $15 minimum wage, and his donors do not want him to. You know what would help out with that 18 to 29-year-old age group? But all age groups, because there's even older people and even seniors with crippling student loan debt. Canceling student debt right now, that could activate the base. But any vote blue, no matter who partisan that tells you today, we could do it. Just fundraise. Just vote. Just get out in the streets and protest. Just vote. Everybody vote for the Democrat senators. And then we could codify it. They're full of shit because I do not see any scenario where Democrats not only keep the Senate, but get 10 extra seats. Name a time in history where gas was on the East Coast, $5 a gallon, on the West Coast, between 7 and 8. Food prices so high, electricity so high, rent going up 30 to 40% because cities all over America have literally sold. City councils, local governments have just sold the city to their real estate donors. That's why we live in the United Corporations of America. By the way, you could get your United Corporations of America t-shirt at statuscoup.com/store. Had to fit that in. If you want good beach wear for the summer, that's statuscoup.com/store. As well as your fossil fucker shirt. That's another favorite selling in the store right now. statuscoup.com/store. But it's just incredible. It's just incredible. And our merch is eco-friendly. That's correct. So, I mean, do what you want. I'm not telling you not to vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but it's fantasy at this point that if you just vote for Democrats in November, Roe v. Wade would be codified. That is fantasy. The quickest way to codifying Roe v. Wade is if this president would show some spine, show some balls, excuse my French, and fight Manchin and Sinema. But the truth is, I don't think he wants it that bad. I don't think he cares about it enough, and I don't think his donors want it. Because if you waive the filibuster for Roe v. Wade, then the people are going to say, all right, let's waive it so we can pass gun control. Let's waive it so we can do something on health care. Let's waive it so we could do something on affordable housing. Let's waive it so we could do something to finally put real money into saving the climate. I mean, we need probably, at this point, the conservative estimate, $10 trillion for climate. So if you waive the filibuster for reproductive rights, then the masses are going to say, why do we even have this thing? It's not in the Constitution. And then Joe Biden's going to have to explain, well, my donors are okay with waiving it, for abortion because, they want their daughters and granddaughters to have a right to choose, but they're not okay if it means, taking homeless people off the streets and saving the planet and, healthcare and, just helping people economically. We can't give the masses, that much. Let's go down the list. Here's Joe Manchin's statement. If you have it, Colin. Quote, I trusted Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh when they testified under oath that they also believed Roe v. Wade was settled legal precedent, and I am alarmed they chose to reject the stability the ruling has provided for 2 generations of Americans. Yeah, you believe that Joe Manchin didn't know what was coming? I got a bridge to sell you. Manchin also said, I support the legislation that would codify the rights Roe v. Wade previously protected. I am hopeful Democrats and Republicans will come together to put forward a piece of legislation that would do just that. Reality check, they will not come together for that. I just told you what Biden could be doing. He could be using the bully pulpit of the presidency to make that corrupt ghoul fold. And he would have women in America behind him. He would have men in America behind him. Remember, pro-choice has overwhelming support. Overwhelming. I don't have the poll in front of me. Last time I looked, it was like between 60 and 70% of Americans did not believe Roe v. Wade should be overturned. Okay? He would have not only the bully pulpit, but the overwhelming majority of Americans behind him. I even think progressives would bite their tongue, hold their nose, and support him if he actually went to war with these 2 ghouls. Then you have Susan Collins, another moron, who I think is playing dumb, but really knew what she was voting for when she voted for Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. Senator Collins, the decision is inconsistent. Kavanaugh's decision is inconsistent with what Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh said in their testimony and their meetings with me, where they both were insistent on the importance of supporting longstanding precedents. You know another word for that, Senator Collins? You know another word for that? It's called perjury. It's called lying under oath. It used to be a crime in America. Hey, I've covered for years former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who helped cover up the poisoning of Flint. By the way, if you don't know, Flint 8 years later still doesn't have clean water. 8 years later, not one official from the state of Michigan has gone to prison. Not one of them has even faced a jury trial. You believe that? Snyder was charged with a misdemeanor, which sources I have are telling me is probably going to get probably going to get dismissed on a technicality. Anyway, he perjured himself to Congress. Nothing happened to him. Bankers crashed the global economy. Nothing happened to them. Oil executives lie every year about spills from their planet-destroying, water-contaminating pipelines. Mass spills in water that serves indigenous people, poor black and brown people, poor white people. Nothing happens to them. They get a fine. But Kavanaugh perjures himself under oath. Amy Coney Barrett lied under oath about Roe v. Wade. Gorsuch lied under oath about Roe v. Wade. Alito lied under oath about Roe v. Wade. Clarence Thomas is literally leaking information about Supreme Court deliberations to his wife, who then was texting with Trump's chief of staff and other Trumpites to try and overturn the election. Do Democrats even evoke the thought of impeaching Clarence Thomas? Of course, it wouldn't work, but people need to see that you're fighting. And by the way, I'm just a white dude talking here. I'm not a woman. I have a wife. I hope to have children one day. I've got a niece, so this doesn't personally, I can't viscerally explain to you about this because I'm not a woman, but we're going to cover protests later. We are going to be talking to women later. Like I said, make sure you're signed up for our text message list so you get a text message when we're live from protests in New York City. But it's obviously we need to go after the Republican Party because they are extreme zealots. They don't care about the Constitution. That's bullshit. Ted Cruz walked around with his miniature, little Constitution in his pocket. Meanwhile, he supported blocking Obama from appointing a Supreme Court justice. The Constitution literally said the president shall appoint or nominate a Supreme Court justice. The Senate will hold hearings. Ted Cruz didn't mind the Constitution on that. They're the first ones to bastardize what the Second Amendment says. A well-regulated militia, not bazooka guns for all. So it's obvious that we need to criticize the Republicans, but you also have to explain why the Republicans have been emboldened to do this. Also want to show Henry Cuellar, who Nancy Pelosi, James Clyburn supported, helping him win re-election down there. Henry Cuellar, a rare Democrat who opposes abortion rights and narrowly survived his primary with the backing of Pelosi, said of the ruling, same position I've had. I'm pro-life. When asked about him being in the minority of his caucus, in my district, I'm not. Yeah. I wish I had better answers for you. I've told you if I were president, what I would do, what Joe Biden can do. He could have done the same thing on guns. If 19 kids being massacred didn't make him do it, if 10 black people being massacred in Buffalo didn't make him do it, he could have gone on offense publicly against Manchin and Sinema. End the filibuster. But he doesn't want to end the filibuster. And I just got to be clear here because we got 600 people watching. We also have to call out the media. Because I don't know if everybody watching what you consider yourself. I'm a progressive. A lot of our audience is progressive. Maybe some of you aren't, whatever. The corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Daily Beast, BuzzFeed, Associated Press. I could go down the list. Time after time, they were foaming at the mouth. Biden is the pragmatic one. Biden is the one that could get things done. Biden is the one that could get things done. Biden is the pragmatic one. If we want somebody that could work with Republicans, bring Republicans over, get things done with Republicans. If you want somebody that could bridge the divides in the Democratic Party, we need Biden. Biden immediately into his presidency. Yeah, we can't do a $15 minimum wage. The parliamentarian says not, even though it's an unelected bureaucrat and just an advisory position. You ever hear Biden talking about the public option that he ran on? Biden ran on, hey, if you elect Ossoff and Warnock in Georgia, we'll get $2,000 checks. You elect Ossoff and Warnock in Georgia, we gave you a $1,400 check. Biden's COVID relief bill, which gave $1.9 trillion, as I reported out on the road. Status Coup is not just in the studio. If you're new to this channel, we get out on the road. We're covering the protests tonight. I went to, during the pandemic, I went Pennsylvania, Ohio, Louisville, and Kentucky. Louisville and Kentucky. Louisville and West Virginia. By the way, no pity for me. I haven't slept in 4 nights because my dog is on a real rampage. For some reason, she's like a newborn now, and she is crying throughout the night, and I have to let her out in the middle of the night. So if I seem kind of off, it's because I haven't slept in 4 nights, but I digress. Still love my dog, Millie. But we went through, and people were being evicted across the country during the pandemic, despite Biden's eviction moratorium, because that eviction moratorium federally had more loopholes than a roller coaster in it. It's just pathetic. And by the way, just to be clear on the Republican Party, Colin, if we could show Kevin McCarthy what he said, the Republican Party, they wanted the Supreme Court to do this. They wanted the Supreme Court to do this because they know suburban women who Trump revolted is a large reason why Biden won the election. Suburban women flipped to the Democratic Party. A lot of Republican suburban women flipped to the Democratic Party to get rid of Trump. Suburban women don't want Roe v. Wade overturned. That's why Kevin McCarthy, if you could put it back up, tweeted out, I'm for codifying a 15-week ban on abortion, which is better than what we have now. I still think that's regressive, but better than an absolute ban on abortion, which is, by the way, where these justices are heading next and where the pro-life movement is heading next. They're not going to stop at just having it legal in states that legalize it. So Kevin McCarthy is saying that because they know it actually is a very, very unpopular opinion. And it polls incredibly unpopular to overturn Roe v. Wade. So Republicans wanted the Supreme Court to do this, so they had plausible deniability. Let me read some super chats. Chris, $5. I'll never associate with a Republican again. If you support GOP in 2022, you're an immoral person and should be shunned from society. This includes family. I hear you, but I've also outlined, vote for whoever you want. I'm not trying to sway you, but don't get it twisted that just voting for Democrats is going to codify Roe v. Wade. I don't think there's any guarantee, even if you got 10 more senators for the Democratic Party, making 60 senators and a filibuster-proof majority. I don't think there's a guarantee even with that, particularly Manchin. TA, $50. Thank you so much, TA Chapman. The regret I feel for the votes I gave to Obama are now fully realized. He had no backbone to get Garland nominated. He had a supermajority. It's pathetic. I don't know if I'll ever vote Democrat again. Keep up the amazing work, Jordan. Thank you very much, TA Chapman, for the $50. I just want to, not in fairness to Obama, he had, at his height, he had 59 senators. It went between 59 and 58 senators. He never had the magic number, which was 60. So he didn't have a filibuster-proof majority. However, he was 2 Senate seats or 1 Senate seat away from having that filibuster-proof majority. He would have had it but Ted Kennedy was sick, just going through the history, and Ted Kennedy couldn't vote because he was dying. So, but even though he was short of it, he never publicly went on a crusade against those 2 or 3 senators that were blocking him on a public option. He said he ran on a public option. Then he gave you a Republican healthcare plan, Obamacare, which was hatched out of the Republican Heritage Foundation. So he never politically went on a crusade against the senators that were blocking him from getting a filibuster-proof majority, just like Biden will not do that. Masturbator, $5. Could you do a poll asking the audience how likely a civil war is becoming with these new right-wing gun laws and decisions from court? I would do it, but I'm not going to do that because YouTube might kick us off if we mention civil war in a poll. Just being honest. YouTube has itchy fingers when it comes to suspensions or outright bans. So we're not going to do a poll on that. But my guess is it would probably, yeah. Unfortunately, I would not rule out violence based on this decision today. I would not rule it out. Jay, $2. What will happen if Dems win in November? Nothing. Well, if Dems win, it depends what you mean by win. If they keep the Senate but lose the House, nothing. Republicans will, have the House and launch possibly impeachment efforts. If they win the House and the Senate, Republicans, all you're going to see for the next year and a half is impeachment hearings and investigations into Hunter Biden, which frankly, there should be investigations into Hunter Biden. Name your pick. Investigations into, money from the federal government for transgender people and whatever other culture war Republicans want to look into. Mika Gelfand, $10. Hard not to be a doomer on days like today. Thanks for your passion and strong voice. It's desperately needed. Yeah, it is tough. It is tough. I'm a dude, so obviously I can't viscerally speak on this as obviously a woman can. We're going to cover the protest tonight and, talk to as many women as we can. But it is a terrible day. It is a terrible day. And it also shows you, I think that I've said, people that watch Status Coup know I'm not telling you anything new. I've said we don't have a democracy pretty much since I've had a microphone. We don't have a democracy. There was a 2014 Princeton study that backs that up, that they found we have an oligarchy. They found that about 50% of the time, legislation that passes is legislation that the elites and the wealthy want. And about 5 to 10% of the time, if we want something, it gets passed. That ain't a democracy. That's an oligarchy. I also think, how do you say you have a democracy if, let's see, Alito, four of these Supreme Court justices were appointed by presidents who lost the popular vote. Colin, can you check who appointed Alito? I think it was George Bush the first, but I think John Roberts was appointed by George W. Bush. And obviously these three, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch.
Yeah, Bush was Alito.
Bush the first, right? Alito was the first George Bush?
No, second.
You sure?
He was nominated by President George W. Bush in 2005.
Wow. So you got Alito. Check John Roberts. I think he was W. Bush too. You got Alito, John Roberts. In 2005?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
same with John Roberts, 2001.
Okay. John Roberts was appointed by George W. Bush, who lost the popular vote. Alito, George W. Bush won the popular vote over Kerry, so he doesn't apply. But John Roberts, 2001, and these three, Coney Barrett, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, were all appointed by presidents that lost the popular vote. So minority rule is dictating women's vaginas. Putting aside the abortion ruling, how do you say you have a democracy if literally popular people who get millions of more votes? I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton, but she got millions of more votes than Donald Trump. George W. Bush, the Supreme Court stole the election for him. And we have a democracy? You want to call it a democracy when Democratic primaries are rigged from the jump? You have apps malfunctioning in Iowa? 2016, Bernie and Hillary. I was in Iowa. Literally all these cable news stations called the race when Hillary Clinton was up by 1/10 of a point. That's democracy? Please. Please. Oh, boy. I'll end because got to get ready to go cover the protests. I'll end with, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you don't know about Status Coup, we are an independent outlet. We cover not just these stories. I've been to Flint nearly 20 times. I just finished another investigative piece on the Flint cover-up. Hopefully we'll be out in the next few weeks. We do reporting trips. I'm currently planning a reporting trip where we're going to travel and interview people on inflation and how the high gas prices, food prices, electricity, rent is just crushing people. Because make no mistake, it isn't just pain at the pump. When you have this kind of economic pain, it affects everything else. Marriages, raising kids, depression, anxiety, fear, etc. So we're going to do a reporting tour on that. We also have covered the Amazon workers' historic union victory. I was out there covering that for a year before they won. We also covered the Buffalo Starbucks workers before they won. We've done reporting covering speaking with homeless people, speaking with people that were being evicted. We went down to Louisville. We've covered the police cover-up of the murder of Breonna Taylor and so much more. We got the historic footage on January 6th of the police officer's head being rammed into the door that you've seen on CNN and all these outlets that YouTube took down. Even though we had the original footage, they took it down from this channel and left it up with other outlets. All of this is not cheap. We have no money from the big banks. We do not take money from the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex, any of them. Our funding comes from you, the viewers. So consider signing up, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for $5 to $10 a month. We also have a monthly call with our members through Zoom, which is probably going to be at the end of next week or the week after. We also have a members Discord. So if you are a member, you could join us in the Discord channel. We also do behind the scenes videos for members. So thank you for watching. Again, sign up for our text message list. Sign up for our text message list. It's free, so you'll get a text message when we're live later today because YouTube does not always notify you. But if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe. And next to the subscribe button, there's a bell. Click that bell, hover over the bell, and click all notifications so you'll get a notification when we're live. It doesn't always work, but YouTube says click all notifications to get our notifications. Thank you for watching. Again, we'll be live from the city, New York City later for protests. I think they'll start around 6 o'clock Eastern. But make sure you get a text. Make sure you sign up for the text list so you'll get a text because we might be live a little earlier than that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.